So Jake, first of all, how lekker was that win?
Yeah, it was very nice, eh? I mean, I heard from you guys a long time. 2 times we lost this year, and they won the conference. And yeah, I mean, we made it hard for ourselves. The message I told the players. I mean, we had a good start. Someone asked me, I think Anna-Marie asked me, how do you get a good start? I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better one, 15-3 up. And but I must say, I think we won the game in the last 5 minutes of the first half when they couldn't score, when we had 12 men on the field. A little bit of deja vu, because I remember playing them, yeah, and we also got them to play with 12 men. We couldn't open them up either. So yeah, I mean, Ronaldo, it's obviously a massive win for us as a club. We get into another final, so that's 3 finals in 4 years, and any club would tell you that's a massive achievement.
So just looking at obviously last time you guys played them, they obviously kicked around and they returned a lot of that kicks.
You talk about these guys now, eh?
Yeah, the Sharks.
Yeah.
This game, you guys, I think got 4 out of the 5, and they only returned 1 of the 5 kicks that they kicked to you guys. So obviously, was that an emphasis for you guys to work on making sure that you get your balls back?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I just had a chat to Scott Burgo Jr. And I asked him, what did you think there? And it looked very good when Kanan catches it out of the air, but we kicked a lot of kicks out of system as well, and we put ourselves under pressure. So. And the ones you remember, the ones where we were organised, kicked well, caught them out of the air, there were times we kicked either too long, to the wrong guy, under pressure, forced, and we put ourselves under pressure, because obviously guys like Fassi and Mpimpi and those guys, once they get that kind of ball running onto you, they went through, and they obviously made a couple of line breaks as well. So, I mean, the picture people see is Kanan catching the ball, and yes, we were very good when we were structured, but we were really poor when we kicked out of structure.
So, MD, just before you go on, can we focus final, and then what we can do is at the end, we can then do a look forward to Leinster, have that under embargo for Monday, so bet smart, since the team will be on the road there.
Okay, so what you're saying was awesome.
Yeah, keep it to the Sharks. And then later on, we'll all come back and have an embargoed session. Looking forward to the final.
Yeah. Jake, Andre Esterhuizen is a danger man, and you made him play where you wanted him to play. Was that a plan? I mean, you ran into the wall, guys waiting for him, and you turned him into a tackler.
Yeah, look, I think you'd give Harold Foster a lot of credit there. I asked him during the week. I said, you must pack in your gum guard and your crash helmet, and your bodysuit, because it's coming, and he said, don't worry, coach, I'll bring my Pella Borva attitude, and I think he brought it today. So I mean, we've got to contain him. I mean, you know what he's like, and even when you're marking him, he still gets over the gain line. So yeah, I mean, Mbia, obviously I haven't had time to look at the whole game again, but I mean, the images I have in my head is that we definitely stopped him from doing as much damage as he can do generally, and has done before. So, and then they had to find some other way to play, and then therefore we were, as I said, more in control after that work rate by both David and Harold.
And scrums, second half, bit of a battle compared to what we used to for the Bulls, and Johnny came on quite late. If I watched, what was thinking behind that?
I remember he cut his eye open, so he was on and off, and I think, well, again, I mean, I don't think I know. When props go on and off, it takes time just to find your rhythm again. It's not like, obviously that's the skill of good props, is that you're just starting to find a way in which you can counter your opposition or get on top of him. And when you go off, it comes at a price, because you've got to find your feet again. And but I also must say, we weren't rewarded early on for really smashing them in the scrum. I thought that we could have probably been rewarded a little bit more. I mean, thank goodness that intercept try, they were offsides, because for me it could have been a penalty. I know what the ref's going to say. They didn't do anything illegal, and they were just running backwards. But I mean, I've seen many games where the scrum runs backwards and it's a penalty anyway. So, I would have thought we probably would have got more love at scrum time. But what I can say is we didn't get love at the scrum, and we still ended up winning the game. So that'll be a massive positive for us as we talk this week.
Just on your defence, reminded us of Leinster, where you just manned up. I wanted to say well done.
Well, I'm going to say it again. I mean, that 5 minutes before half time with 12 men, I mean, it didn't look like they were going to score. And I mean, that's a massive boost to the defence coach, the players. And I said it to them in the change room. That's where we won the game. Sometimes you think you win the game in a kick in the last minute. It's not that. It's what you do in certain times. And we were 12 out of 10 there for the way we showed attitude. And I mean, again, I say it confidently. I sat there thinking, I don't think they're going to score here because we were really fronting up well there. Yeah, and and you can imagine coming in the change room at half time. When you come in without letting them score a try, you got a very different vibe at half time than you would have if they just conceded a try there.
Coach, congrats on the win. Coach John spoke about how difficult was it to front up to this lots of people who were here today. What do you say to the
Yeah, I say thank you. I just said it afterwards in the ek sê baie dankie vir almal wat kom ondersteun het. And I say that because obviously our supporters are from all over South Africa, and I say thank you because there's no use having a home semi-final and you don't fill the stadium. So to have that, I mean, it can only be a massive boost for the club. And I'm sure they're proud tonight. I'm sure they're proud. I mean, any supporter that sees your team win a semi-final is gonna enjoy that. And the youngsters that are here are going to tell their dads they want to come watch the Bulls play again. So fantastic that we can have such good supporters. I mean, I've only been here 5 years, but I know full well that the one thing about a Bulls supporter is fanatical. Sometimes he loves you, sometimes he hates you, but he's fanatical. And I'm just so glad that they could see a team win tonight and get themselves into another final, which all goes down in the history books of how good and how big this club is.
Jake, on Friday you said that great players find a way to play well in big games like this. Imbros Papi today, here today, 2 moments of brilliance on the attack led to the first try and then David's try at the end. He really played well.
Yeah, to be fair, he is a Springbok and he has tasted international rugby. And he's been our full scrum off as well. I mean, he's played most minutes for us as a 9. Cobus. I mean, but to be, again, everyone will know your son plays 9. You can only play as well as the forward pack plays in front of you, and that's why he could do what he could do, because our forward pack at times were really good. I would have to say that there were times they put us under pressure and we needed to improve, but I do think that it's good for Emmy anyway, because remember he's been out a little while he sat out 1 or 2 weeks with his injury, so to have last week he circled. Remember your guy said to me afterwards it got charged down early on and all that sort of stuff. So I'm glad that he's taken another step up, because that means when he plays well, it'll be good for us as a team.
Just Cameron Vodacom.
Yeah, he's just having a sonar now. Obviously he's very upset. I mean, that's natural. I mean, but I said to his parents now in the change room, he's 21. You forget, when I started coaching, 21-year-old forwards weren't invited to Northern Transvaal training. And if they were, it was generally to be cannon fodder for the old men to bash them on a Monday night. So, he's obviously jumped the queue because he's so talented and he feels a bit down now, but we mustn't forget he's only 21 years old and there's still a lot of rugby that he's going to be involved in, over the next couple of years.
Was it his hamstring?
Yeah, it was his hamstring, yeah.
Okay. You spoke on Harold Forster and Emmy. How about Seb's game? He got man of the match.
Yeah, geez, I thought he was outstanding. I mean, obviously it started from the very first kickoff. It's not often that you get a winger gets a sort of 60-meter run from a kickoff. And I'm happy for him as well. He's got incredible work rate. Played against 2 wingers that are in the Springbok setup. I mean, Mapimpi and obviously Ethan Hooker play in the Springbok setup now in terms of their camps. So it's nice for him that at least he can measure himself against 2 guys that have been picked to go to this camp from tomorrow.
Thanks.
Jake, good evening and congratulations on the result. How happy are you with the repeat emotional effort of winning back-to-back playoffs? The winning of playoffs sometimes is meant to look easy by just the end result.
Yeah.
But you had to bounce back last week. from 21-8. This week you have to come back, not come back and say, but you have to play
Correct.
with 12 men. How are you managing that particular emotional space?
Well, you know, I've been doing it for a long time, and I said to them, you know, if you've learned from the lessons you've had in the past, and this will be our third final, and you know, I don't need to tell them what they need to do because they've played in finals, and they've played, you know, they've played away finals, and they've played home final, and now it's another away final. So they've paid their school fees in terms of what they need to know. But it's an emotional drain. You know, you can imagine last week 21-8 down, this week, you know, 15-3 up, and then all of a sudden you're not running away with it. And that's what knockout rugby is all about. It's about you know, it's about having an arm wrestle and staying in the battle. You know, and sometimes the battle is how you get up and chase. It's not just all the flashy things. You know, people think the battle means you've got to do all the extraordinary things. The battle is just doing the things that you're good at. So that's what's pleasing for me, is that we had to work tonight, when we really had to work hard to get that result, and you know, that means we've learned, because it's not going to be any easier next week, guys. I know you're going to ask me about next week, but I mean, can it get any harder? Playing Leinster in a final that have got, you know, many internationals and many British and Irish Lions players, and you play them away from home. So, you know, that is what youngsters at this club want to be part of. They want to play in those games. So I'm going to answer it by saying we need to learn those lessons, and next week we're going to get a test that we probably have never had before.
I just want to check. Cool. Hello? Okay, cool. So, shall we?
One quick, just on this game.
Okay.
Jake, in that time period where you guys lost the few yellow cards, you also had Rowan off the field as well.
Yeah.
I think he cut in his eye as well. You started running out of captains. I suppose in a way that makes it even more impressive, the fact that you had Marcel and Rowan, some of the senior guys off the field as well.
And Cobus took over as captain, and it's interesting because Cobus has captained us before. So, you know, over this period of time, you know, you never know when you're going to have to call on someone's number, and he was, you know, obviously being a captain, as captain the Bulls, you know, then he could take charge there. So, and that's probably also why, Brendan, I mean, I know it's easy because in hindsight I can tell you this, but that's why it's such a massive win. You know, you lose your captain, you lose three players to yellow cards, you defend your try line, you're playing against the side that's beaten you twice in the season. I mean, there must be a premium on the fact that you still can pull it off and win this game, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's all part of the building blocks we put together in the last 4 years. Is who's the captain, you know, who takes over, what happens when you're on the try line, you know, what happens when we're down 13 men, you know, or 14 men, or whatever the story is. And we've managed to learn those lessons along the way, and that's part of what teams do that grow. You know, now we're going to play at Croke Park. I don't know how many people would come to that final. I mean, hopefully it's going to be sold out, and that's a massive stadium, you know. So this is probably, from a spectator point of view, the biggest game these youngsters can play in, and that'll just make them better and better and better. And that's part of what we want to do, is make sure that our players become resilient and better when they get into these big pressure situations.
Cool. Ken with the last one on today.
Jake, at the end of the game, the celebrations were probably a bit muted. I mean, the guys were probably very exhausted. But B, do you feel like there was a sort of recognition that for a lot of that game that didn't play their best rugby? And is that just down to the yellow cards, or do you feel
I think the celebration is the way it should be, because we've won nothing, Ken. You know, if you guys are all in sports journalism, then the headlines will be Bulls celebrate, you know, vociferously post the game, so they've played their final. You know, so I'm actually quite chuffed that you said they just went through the motions about winning this game, because we've won nothing. You know, it doesn't matter whether you won a semi-final at home, you haven't got anything. You know, in fact, we didn't even win the Shield. So, yeah, I mean, I'm actually quite chuffed when you told me that, because then we're on the right page. You know, it's got nothing to do about, maybe it's because we didn't play well and we had 13 men and we had 12 men, or whatever the story was, but you know, we say we're good enough and we believe we're good enough to win this tournament. So then there's no use running around having laps of honour and making out as though you've achieved something when you haven't really. I mean, I think, to be fair, the players asked me, can they go out and just thank everybody? And I think that is a gesture to say to our supporters, thanks for coming and thanks for your support. But, you know, if you've told me now, which I'm glad, is that the celebration was a bit muted, well, then that's probably what I would have expected.
Jake, can I just ask you about one other individual player?
Yes.
The way he played tonight, would you bet against Cobus Wiese maybe becoming a Springbok sometime soon? Isn't that?
No, well, I mean, my job is to create Springboks when you're in a provincial team. It's been picked now, you know, in a couple of alignment camps. And again, I think tonight he showed, you know, against a really tough, resilient Sharks team that were coming at us. I mean, that's also not saying that anyone else didn't do it, but I mean, that defensive effort there is also the ability for him to get up and make big hits and use his weight and his strength to keep out, you know, guys from the try line. So, you know, Ken, I always say I don't like to talk about individual players, but he is important to us, and when he's played well, we've done well, you know. And so I hope that he's a guy that will get a test cap. You know, this union prides itself on producing locks. You know, we produce many Springbok locks, and if it means that he's going to be the next in line, then that's fantastic. And also, it would be wrong of me not to tell you, well, came back from Sale Sharks, and if he becomes a Springbok, then maybe the message to everyone is to come back to the Bulls and see whether you can play for South Africa.